everyone. It is Coach Maggie, Certified Health and Lifestyle Coach. And today I want to talk about a topic that you don't hear a lot about. It's the lymphatic system. And before you shut me down and say that sounds boring, it isn't boring at all. And it's so critical because I believe that it is behind so much of the disease and the sickness that we have going on. So let me just tell you a little bit about the lymphatic system. Think of it like a super highway inside of our body. And it carries fluid and to different parts. It helps protect the body from disease, from sickness, and nutrients, and it helps take things out of the body. Several years ago, actually I think 2 years ago, I decided to do a detox. And I had done them before, but this particular one was maybe a little bit more intense, shall I say, than others. And the problem is, and spring, fall are wonderful times, let me say, to do a detox. But what I did is I really didn't have my pathways open, so that a detox is just how it sounds. It's getting rid of toxins that are in the body, which we desperately need to do. But again, because the pathways weren't open, those toxins just swirl around and around and around in the body. And that's often what happens with people when they get sick. Those things don't have a way to go out. In my case, the toxins came out through my skin, and I ended up with a horrific rash from the shoulders up. And so for 3 months, I pretty much stayed secluded. I did not see anyone. And still, that rash, of course, then scarred over. And I had scars that went months into the year. And then finally, after about 6, 8 months, they disappeared. But again, it just shows how our body is so uniquely and intricately made. I was just reading something today on the lymphatic system, and I thought this is perfect. Their analogy was a highway. And we've all, maybe if we haven't, we've at least seen them on TV or read about them. But in many of your large major cities, you may have a highway with traffic going in one direction that's 6 or 8 lanes wide. And I know we go visit my kids in Chicago, and there are a lot of the major expressways that have toll booths. So you might have 8 lanes, but guess what? You've got to narrow down to get through the toll booths because there may only be 4. You see this at airports too. And then occasionally there will be times when you may have 8 toll booths, but only 4 of them are open, because a lot of times they only open them during rush hour. So maybe this is midday and there are only 4 that are open. So those 8 lanes have to narrow down and fight for it getting through. And that's what is happening. And when things get backed up in the body, just like when they get backed up on an expressway, on a freeway, you're going to have a bottleneck. You're going to have tempers flying. You're going to have people blowing their horns. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happens in the body. Things start breaking down. So regardless of the sickness that you might have or things that are brewing, the lymphatic system affects everything. We tend to isolate and we think, oh, about the heart, or we think about the liver, or we think about the lungs. But the lymphatic system affects everything. But yet it's so ignored. You don't hear much about it. I've never been to a doctor visit or had someone say, so how's your lymphatic system working? I wasn't even aware of it until several years ago. But yet it is so very critical, and it does such major work. And yet again, when we have an issue with the gallbladder or our kidneys aren't working well, we tend to think it's just the kidneys. But the lymphatic system is simply backed up. Think on the same analogy of a highway. Think about an ambulance getting on the highway. and it's heading to the hospital, and they've got a sick person in there. And they've got their lights blaring, the noise, the sirens going, and yet there's all this traffic. And so, and I've seen this actually, where they'll go onto the shoulder of the road, they'll go in the medium, they're blowing their horn and they're trying to get that person to the hospital. And most of the time, they're able to weave their way through and eventually get there. But if it's a life or death matter, it could be the life or death of that person in the ambulance. And I believe that's what's going on in our body. Many of the times we're able to get there in time and everything works out. But what about those times when that's not the case? Again, there's blockage. So there are lots of things that can be done to keep things moving. But I want to talk about 3. Now, I'm going to be covering this in more detail next week when I start my Simple Healthy Habits in 4-week program. So definitely, if this is something you're thinking, maybe this is what's going on with me, or how do I learn how to get things moving, make sure that you sign up. I'll put a link in the comments. But I want to touch on 3. Number 1 is really quite simple. You hear it all the time, but yet we don't do it, and that's drink more water. Pure, clean water. The lymph is liquids moving through the body. We need to be flushing things out. And when we're doing everything but drinking enough water, the traffic starts moving slowly. And we've all been in slow bumper to bumper traffic. And when things aren't flowing, it starts to shut things down. So we need to drink plenty of water. Another thing that's often overlooked is we need to cut down on the amount of chemicals that are going in our body and on our body. We need to cut way back. Think about a typical day. Now, I'm recording this just before lunch, so mid-morning. By mid-morning, most people have showered and they've used soap or shower gels, deodorant, brushed your teeth with fluoride in your toothbrush. Maybe you've used cleansers and toners. You've sprayed your hair. You've put on all these different products. Maybe you've spritzed some cologne or some kind of a spritzer. You've done all of these things. Maybe you've used a mouthwash. You've put on lotions. We lather ourselves with all of these products. And then you go and you start your morning, and maybe you have coffee or tea, but it's not organic, so there's chemicals in there. And you just go from there. You put sugar in your drink and it's not organic. And the list goes on and on and on. So we bombard ourselves with all of these various products, internally and externally. Those affect the lymphatic system as well, blocking pathways. The other thing is often we're emotionally stuck. We're emotionally stressed. That's another huge factor. Because again, it's sort of like when we say we're stuck, think of what that means internally. Think of that highway analogy. Think of that car that's broken down on the highway. Don't we just love it when we're in a hurry and traffic is moving at a snail's pace and you finally get up there and you realize it's a broken down car? And then once you get past that, things start flowing. That's exactly what happens with our body. When we are stressed, when we have this blockage, like I can't think, I can't focus, it affects everything else. It is not isolated. Your bad day turns into, bad things happening on the inside. So keep these things in mind. There are so many things. Another thing that I'll be doing next week in my workshop is talking about things that we can do as far as massages and things that we can do to make a difference, jumping on a rebound or some other things. So again, all the things that we can do in addition to changing those lifestyle habits, changing how we eat, the foods we eat. Those are things that are going to make a difference in our bodies running smoothly, being able to think more clearly, being able to be active, not waking up, achy all the time. There's a difference in which side you sleep on that affects the lymphatic system. I'll be talking about that next week. Again, a lot of things that we don't think about, but they all are things that we can do. There's a lot that's out there that is telling us, don't worry about it. Just take this little thing, just do this little thing, drink this little drink, and it's the answer. There's a lot of things that we can do. We are not at the mercy of, oh, I guess it's just my bad genes. You may have bad genes, but think of it like it's the bullet in the gun, but your lifestyle, your diet is you pulling the trigger. As long as you don't pull that trigger, even though that gun is loaded, it won't ever shoot. But let's start changing the lifestyle. Let's start doing the things that we do have control over. So again, I'll be talking about a lot of things that I've never done in any of my programs. So please consider signing up. I will put a link. And again, just taking these 3 things. Start today. Drink more water. Let go of some of those things that are holding you back. Forgive that person. Let go of that thing. Give those things to God that you cannot handle. Do what you can when you can, but the rest, give to God. And then we also need to be making sure of the products we're using. Let's let go of a lot of those things. Start going more natural. Start using natural remedies instead of always grabbing for some synthetic man-made thing. Let's get back to some of those basic things. So anyway, I hope this has given you some ideas. Again, this is not a topic that's exciting, but is so, so very, very important. And it affects every single one of us in so many ways. So anyway, have a blessed week. Also, make sure and come back on Mondays. I do Monday morning mindset, usually between 7:30, 8:30, but I talk a lot about the mindset. It's that catchword that we hear all the time, but it is so very important because our emotions drive our health. And so when we've got all these things, when we're holding on to so much baggage, it is preventing really good, vibrant health. So keep that in mind. So go out there, have an amazing day. Be a blessing to those around you. Your smile can make the difference in someone else's day, and definitely for you and your family. So take care and God bless.